welcome back to Bumblebee's exploration team. Today we'll be excavating the remnants of the top 10 ancient cities that vanished without a trace. So hard hats on the head and let's get started. We'll start with one that we may be a little bit more familiar with, the Mystery of Roanoke. For most on the list, the civilization as well as the city was lost, but in the case of Roanoke, it was only ever the civilization. See, Roanoke is formed when 115 English colonialists landed on the island, which is off the North Carolina coast. Led by Governor John White, the first English children are born in the Americas. White leaves his son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter with the rest of the new colony to sail back to England for more supplies. He returns 3 years later in 1587, but there was nothing. No sign of a struggle or fight, no bodies to be found. Homes were untouched, even just frozen in time. The only clue were the words Croatoan and Croa carved into a wooden post and a tree. The lost colonists were never found. But some other things were. In 2012, a map of Virginia Pars, drawn by John White, revealed plans of a secret fort 50 miles west of Roanoke. Following said map, archaeologists find 2 sites and uncover a trove of European artifacts near the indigenous community of Metaquem. It's a compelling evidence of the Roanoke colony. Just as months before this discovery, an archaeologist has claimed to find artifacts also belonging to the colonists on the modern island of Hatteras, which is 50 miles from Roanoke and was at the time known as Croatoan, the same word carved into the tree. Theories for the missing community naturally include indigenous attacks, but the lack of damage to the city and the seeming leave of their own accord just doesn't line up. So many believe that with lack of supplies while John White was gone, these settlers assimilated into indigenous clans and they left with a word behind as a message to John where they'd gone. He just never thought to look there, and we continue to look for clues. Another famed city is the Legend of El Dorado. The Spanish explorers in South America hear of the Legend of El Dorado for the first time in the 1500s. Said to be somewhere in the Andes, the Muisca indigenous people had initiated a new chief by dusting him head to toe in gold and throwing pounds of golds, emeralds, and other precious stones into a sacred lake. The chief's name was El Dorado, the golden one. Well, just like all the cartoons when the eyes roll out of the head and the jaw and tongue dramatically drop to the ground, these greedy colonists were weak in the knees at the idea of finding and pillaging sacred ritual gold. These adventurers, Spanish, German, Portuguese, and English, ventured deep into any place that seemed promising, such as the unforgiving landscapes of Colombia, Guyana, and Brazil. In the search for mythic treasure that it seems indigenous ancestors protected from their greed, sending death in all forms towards these colonizers: disease, starvation, storms, snakes, and predators. Over time, El Dorado went from being a man to a city to a valley paved with gold, just waiting for discovery. No golden trove was ever or has ever been found. Now, there may be some truth to the legend, however. The lake mentioned in the Muisca story may be Laguna Guadativia, which is high in the Andes near Colombia. Some golden objects and jewels have been dredged in that body of water, and another nearby, but attempts to drain the lake and recover the reputed riches have all failed. Whatever treasure down there remains undisturbed and protected by the forces they were given to. What happened to Angkor is the next question that we'll be trying to crack. It's one that archaeologists have been trying to crack for years. On the other side of the world, the empire once spread across what's modern-day Cambodia and was one of the largest civilizations in the world. The estimated population was 700 to 900,000 people. If that estimation is correct, this means that the population of Angkor was roughly comparable to almost the 1 million people who lived in ancient Rome at its height. Angkor remains one of the most important archaeological sites in Southeast Asia and is protected World Heritage Site by UNESCO. Its famous temple, Angkor Wat, is one of the 7 wonders of the world. Since it stretches over 400 kilometers including forests, the remains of different capitas in the Khmer Empire range from 9th to 15th century and also include famous temples Angkor Thom and Bayon. Its height between 1000 and 1200 CE, it had streets, grid systems, houses, and apartments, and then this civilization vanished. By the time the Portuguese missionaries arrived in the 16th century, the city was abandoned and its temples enshrouded in vegetation. Experts are unsure as what to cause the civilization to disappear, leaving its cities at the mercy of relentless jungle. Theories range from environmental catastrophe to war. There are few written accounts that survive that period, and so it's an enduring mystery, and historians don't have much evidence to grasp onto. Time for me to butcher this name again. It's Teoihuacan. I'm gonna be calling it Teo. I do my best, guys. Anyways, if you watch our top 10 ancient alien discoveries that will confuse you video, you may know the city also as being called the City of the Gods. At its peak in 400 AD, Teo was just 30 miles northeast of what's present-day Mexico City in the Valley of Mexico. This impressive city held an estimated population of over 100,000 and held palaces, temples, plazas, and thousands of apartments in a grid-systemed road, and once reigned as the largest city in the Americas. One of its most famous structures was the topic of our alien video. It's an insanely grand pyramid of the sun, venerating a deity within the society. society. There's also the nearby Pyramid of the Moon, which was discovered to have sacrificial purposes. Skeletons of pumas, eagles, and wolves are found alongside 12 human skeletons, 10 of which were decapitated. But like all cities on our list, something happened. In the case of Tia, it's known that the city burned, but we're unsure how it started. The stone still carries the telltale signs of an inferno of an insane size. Some wonder if it was invading Greeks using their famous hot Greek fire. The city never recovered from said fire. By the time the Aztecs found it in the 1400s and named it they did, which by the way in English stands for the place where the gods were created, the city had been abandoned for centuries. So just who these people were, where they came from, and what the city's true name is or what language they spoke remain a mystery that archaeologists are still working to uncover. This next society was said to have been as powerful as the Incas and the Aztecs, the Spiro Nation mounds. And if prospectors hadn't stumbled upon their burial chamber in 1933, we would have never known they existed. The chamber had been closed for well over 500 years and had stunning treasures such as engraved conch shells, pearl and shell beads, large human effigy pipes, and brightly hued blankets and robes. Newspapers dubbed this an American King Tut's tomb. The chamber led to the discovery of 12 mounds, the elite's village area, and the supporting city area. This is all that remains of a prehistoric power that once equaled the size and sophistication of the Aztec and Inca as mentioned. The Spiro people ruled over the Mississippian culture and took nearly 2/3 of what is now the United States. It became a permanent settlement around the 800 AD point and seemingly exists until 1450 AD. Artifacts depict a prosperous trading city that held an assumed 10,000 plus people. There's copper from the Great Lakes, conches from the Gulf of Mexico, beads from the Sea of Cortez, and cups from the Florida Keys. According to historian Eric Singleton, what truly makes Spiro so unique is that not only is the most object-laden mound ever discovered in North America, but it included objects from around the known world of the time, which was North America. They invited people around the world to bring known holy objects to Spiro to be ritualistically acted upon. But the Spiro people mysteriously disappeared by 1500. Perhaps due to an extended drought or political battle. It's believed that the unpredictable weather changes started in 1250 are the cause, as by 1450 the drought cycle continued and the mound city seemingly abandoned. The site remained mostly untouched until the 1930s when treasure hunters got wind of antiquities buried in the earth. What followed was one of the largest and longest episodes of looting in North America, and now indigenous colonies once again have to battle to get their items rightfully returned. Speaking of lost trade cities, let's visit the city of Great Zimbabwe. Near what's modern-day Masvingo, Great Zimbabwe was built sometime around or before the 11th century and is now a World Heritage Site. The city was a capital of the Kingdom of Zimbabwe, which was a Shona, Bantu, trading empire. And it was a wealthy one to boot. Archaeologists have found pottery from China and Persia, as well as Arab coins in the ruins there. The elite of Zimbabwe Empire controlled the trade up and down the East African coast. Great Zimbabwe Center was a palace enclosed by a granite wall some 5 meters high. Today it's separated into 3 sections: the hill complex built in 900 CE, the great enclosure built in the 14th century, and the valley ruins, a sprawling community of houses. The distribution and numbers of houses imply the city was home to a population between 10 and 20,000. However, the city was largely abandoned by the 15th century. The exact reasons for the abandonment, once again, are unknown, but it's likely exhaustion of resources and overpopulation that were contributing factors. While it was found in 1867, significant looting and destruction occurred in the 20th century at the hands of European visitors. While they were all too happy to loot, in the racism they felt that the city was still too sophisticated to have been built by Africans and instead thought it was built by non-African people. This means artifacts in circulation that could teach us more about this great nation are misidentified and attributed to being from somewhere else, and we don't know. Shrouds of this missing population are now more so in mystery. This city was featured famously in Indiana Jones, the City Tanis. In Raiders of the Lost Ark, the City Tanis had been buried by an ancient sandstorm and rediscovered by the Yahtzee, as Taylor and Olivia like to call them, villains, searching for the Ark of the Covenant. But this baby is also biblical, or well, Taurical. Readers of the Old Testament may know this city as Zone. This is where Moses was said to have worked his miracles. The riches uncovered from the ancient city of Tanis, which is located on the Nile Delta northeast of Cairo, include a royal tomb complex filled with golden masks, jewelry, silver coffins, and other treasures rivaling those of King Tut. So it can be in one of the world's oldest scriptures and a popular movie franchise, so why don't you know about it? Why, for more more than 6 decades, the riches from its rulers' tombs remained largely unknown when it was first found and excavated in 1825. World War II started just as the royal tomb was discovered in 1939. Nobody could wonder over ancient treasures when war was bringing in society. After the war, it never had its time to shine either, since damage control was top priority. We know nothing of their civilization, where they went, what they spoke, dressed, ate, or even how they governed. Although some of the Tanis treasures can now be found in Cairo's Egyptian Museum, and a sacred lake dedicated to the goddess Mut was located in 2009, scientists know there's more to be discovered. Infrared satellite imagery reveals more buildings waiting, buried under sand. The Indus Valley was great, then gone. Mesopotamia and Egypt evolved over time, conquerors and traders, merging with other cultures. The Indus Valley civilization, however, which was the largest of the three and reigned between 25 and 1700 BC, collapsed and vanished, and no one knows why. What's now modern-day Pakistan, the Indus Valley civilization was blessed by the highly fertile lands and the Indus River floodplain. They traded with nearby Mesopotamia, and the two cities, Harappa, discovered in 1921, and Mohenjo-Daro in 1922, were once home to 40 to 50,000 people, which testifies to their sophistication in central planning. They were farmers, traders, commoners, priests, and artisans. The culture was literate, with an elaborate script that remains largely undeciphered. Important innovations included standardized weights and measurement systems and stone seal carving. We know that around 1900 BC, invaders wiped out the city of Mohenjo-Daro, and more recent discoveries using river sediment from the Arabian Sea show that heavy monsoons occurred during the Arctic freeze, which may have driven the civilization up into the hills. We still know very little about life in the Indus Valley. We've yet to decode their writing or understand their arts and cultures. Archaeologists continue to dig, looking for clues to piece together the story of this mysterious civilization and where they went. The long-lost city of Etzanoa is up next. We love a city with a fun preamble like that. It always signifies a good story. Legend, yes legend, tells us of a vast ancient indigenous metropolis, housing more than 20,000 citizens and flourishing near present-day Arkansas City in south-central Kansas. The citizens of Etzanoa, now ancestors to the Wichita Nation, were referred to as the Great Settlement by other indigenous groups. They lived in houses reportedly shaped like big beehives, each holding around a dozen people, with lush gardens between the homes during the warm seasons. And during the cold months, the community would follow the bison herds and erect teepees as temporary travel dwellings. No motel fees necessary. They had strong artisanal traditions and an extensive trade network that reached as far as the Aztec capital. Their artifacts have been identified in countless countries. Starting in the late 16th century, Spanish conquistadors on a quest for gold contacted the group living in this region for trade. According to Spanish accounts, when they met, the two groups were friendly and cordial with each other and even shared corn cakes. But in 1601, someone had to screw that up, and it was greedy Spanish colonist Juan de Ornate, who took clan members hostage. The clan returned for them and attacked the Spanish, who in turn fired 4 cannons. The clan then retreats and disappears. Forever. It's as if they decided the outside world didn't deserve them in a Wakanda-style twist and vanished behind a curtain from all trades and their own land seemingly overnight. French explorers who passed through in the 1700s did not find a city despite the legend, and archaeologists summarize that smallpox or other diseases probably killed most of the original settlers. Some of our only remaining evidence that they existed was a map drawn by one of the hostages after he was taken back to New Mexico. It's in fact the only reason that we know that its name is Etzanoa. It remained a mystery until 2016, when a local teen found a cannonball linked to the 17th century battle. The long-lost city, and at least its remnants, had finally been rediscovered, and they were covered by a golf course. And now for the city that may be Atlantis, Helike. What makes Atlantis such a touchy subject is the fact that we've never found it, but documents exist from centuries ago that mention its existence multiple times as a trade city. But Helike existed, and what happened to them may be our Atlantis origin, or there are simply more than one underwater cities than we'd like to believe. The ancient Greek city-state of Helike ruled as an important economic, cultural, and religious center. By the 4th century, the city led the Achaean League, which was a confederation of cities, and established colonies such as Sybaris in southern Italy. It's also listed as one of the ally cities in the Iliad. Now, according to classical historians, in 373 BC, something whack went down. It's said for 5 days, snakes, mice, and other creatures deserted the city for higher grounds, then an earthquake struck, the city plummeted into the ground, and the ocean washed over it, killing all residents. Sounds like Venice and LA in a couple years. This vanished city faded into legend, and its location remained unknown despite hundreds of 19th and 20th century explorers searching. In 2001, an archaeological team turned its attention to inland to the delta formed by rivers flowing into the Gulf. There they finally found it. 4th century BC walls, coins, and pottery buried under centuries of silt. The long-lost city had appeared once more. Excavations continue to this day, so we may learn the language, politics, and culture and overall history of this vanished city. Alright, thank you so much for joining me in this adventure. I hope you enjoyed this global trip, so be sure to like and subscribe to see more of our content. Comment down below which one of these cities you'd want to visit the most. For me, it'd be Angkor Wat with my mom. It's always been on her bucket list.